Anthony. Nice to see you today, and thank you so much for taking your time to this interview. And, my name is Kathleen, and I'm a finance major. She is Yafang, and she majors in accounting.
Nice to meet you.
We are all from UT Dallas, and we've learned a lot from the last part that you're talking about your working experience in JP Morgan and AIG Insurance Company. So we would like to know more about the financial industry in this part. Okay. So my first question is, capital markets is always up and down. And as a portfolio analyst, how can you make sure that the customer get the sustainable profit, and how to reduce the possible loss for customer?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you know that there are different kind of risks out there, and there are strategies for different kinds of risks. There's you have the systematic risks, and you have the unsystematic risks. And again, companies have ways of determining or putting strategies in place for that. For example, I read a few days ago about a company that had a systematic risk kind of situation, in the sense that part of this portfolio was, a large part of this portfolio was part of this company, was invested in this company. And all of a sudden, and then a few days ago, that there was I think I heard there was a strike or something like that with the company. Now, these unsystematic risks are things that you really can't really calculate. You really don't know when they're going to come up. So one of the things that, and this particular company, I think this company was in the transportation business. Was one of the in the transportation sector. So one of the things that most companies would do to minimize whether it's systematic or unsystematic risk, for unsystematic risk, you would be able to diversify. So within this company, within the trucking industry, you would, or the transportation industry, you would just not deal with transportation in the sense that you're dealing with trucks or aerospace or whatever. You would put different types of percentages of your investment dollars in these different things. So in the event one thing go up or down, because nothing is a sure thing. I mean, it's all a matter of just being able to minimize risks. So to answer that question, is that diversification is one of the means of being able to handle the risks that comes with the market. And portfolio managers do is that this thing comes with years of experience. To be handling a portfolio of $2.5 billion, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. You can go bald overnight with something like that. You could actually have a heart attack with that kind of money if you don't have all kinds of strategies in place for that. Because there are people's 401ks are involved in there, all of their retirement monies, all of these different types of things are in there. So, a lot of times companies sit on a large amount of cash because they're not sure where to put it. So, you're going to do like a lot of short-term securities or whatever, just to make sure, just to hold money, just looking for opportunities. Because right now the market is so unstable, we really don't know where to put the money. So you find that they're holding a large segment of their money, it's in cash. Also, depends what the part of this portfolio, who this portfolio is for. Depends. I could have a large segment of it that's very risky, because I'm trying to attract those large percentages. So I'm doing a lot of emerging market type of investments, and very small amount of debt in there. So it depends on the strategy of the portfolio strategy, going to determine what we want to do. So you find that a lot of portfolio managers, they have a strategy of how what is the objective of this portfolio, and that's going to drive risks what percentages we're going to hold in different assets, and like again, it's really what is the objective of the portfolio. So
I mean that makes sense. If we have an objective of that, we will have some special strategy to fulfill the object.
yeah, and that's why you have a lot of people who just actually monitor these things. You monitor these portfolios every day, constantly. You're listening to. You have to be very familiar with the Fed. You have to know what the Federal Reserves are doing. You want to know what's happening in political issues internationally, because there's so many factors that can destabilize what was once stable. Happenings in other parts of the world, because like I said, we are dealing with the global market, and it's very important that what happens in Europe or in Asia or Singapore, it's affecting my portfolio here in New York or Dallas.
Exactly.
So there are people who is, and again, this is where I talked about intellectual curiosity, economic curiosity, is that you can't wait until something happened, because things really, even though it might appear like it happened overnight, there were some signs of this thing happening along the way. For example, when Britain pulled out of the EU, you would have to be falling asleep to miss that, because there are people who are already monitoring that and already knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that you have to be able to know what the world activities are, and you anticipating strategies, so you're not going to be blindsided. I have $2.5 billion to manage, so I got to make sure that I know what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Asia, what's happening in North America. I have to be able to be on top of that. So again, you're getting into a business or an industry where the key word is intellectual curiosity, economic curiosity, where you have to be able to read a lot. You got to be able to, and again, like I mentioned, a lot of people don't do this for many, many years because it's so much work. After about 10, 15 years, man, you're burnt out. But you got a nice bank account, okay? But you have to really work. I mean, I work with some people who, and even I did it, I would be up early in the morning and I'm reading the Financial Times. You got to be able to know how to be able to, you got to read the paper a lot. You got to be able to look at
know the market.
You got to know the market. You got to know the market. You got to be able to know how to read bond prices. I meant to add, mention earlier when you talked about during the interview process with these jobs, what the company normally would do, and this is really a lot of people miss it there. They would ask you, so tell me what company you've been tracking the last 2 years. Okay? They want to know that you had been tracking some company. So if I'm interviewing you and I say you apply for a job and you want to be a portfolio analyst, or again, I'm trying to see how curious you are about the markets. So I would say to you, what company have you been tracking for the last 2 years? You better tell me some company. If you tell me none, this interview is over. I might be nice about it, and I won't even write, because you might think I wrote something down. I'm just going to wait till you leave the interview, and I'm just going to say, no curiosity here. Because if you're going to be in the markets, you want to be able to be on top of the markets. You got to know what's going on. I remember when they had asked me that particular question, I had did my internship at IBM. So I really was tracking IBM stocks. So I kind of know all of the movement in IBM. I know the management of IBM. I was happy they even asked that question, because I got some points on that, because I was able to, and I happened to be reading, and I read somewhere that that's one of the questions they would ask you. Tell me about some company that you've been monitoring for the last 2 years. And again, they might ask you that, but they might ask you a similar question to see how aware you are in the markets. So
That's quite interesting.
yeah, these are all things that could trip us up if we are not, if we don't know. We coming in there thinking that my 3.5 GPA, is enough to get me this job. But they don't, I mean, even though that's a factor, but that's not the only factor. There are other things that they're looking for to see if you're going to be if you can fit into this high pressure environment. So.
That's cool. I've learned a lot from your experience in the market.
well, thank you.
Yeah, so I have next question. When you have some really tough customer, because customer always care more about their money, but you are a portfolio analyst, you know how the profit they will make or how the market is going now. And if you have some really tough clients that you need to deal with, and how will you do?
That's always, fortunately, I wasn't really at the customer level, so I really did not have to answer to the customers, but I had to prepare reports that had bad returns, that had negative returns or did not meet expectations, because expectations is what drives the market. Company stocks could go up and down significantly because expectations were not met. They would have quarterly expectations, and these expectations actually drives the market. So sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these numbers, and I have to tell my manager, like, our expectation had not been met. So now they have to be able to go to the client, but one of the things that you learn is that when you're dealing with clients and investments, no matter how tough somebody is that the financial markets or the financial industry tend to measure investments quarterly. But this is not a quarterly strategy we have. So I could tell a client that, look, this quarter it might be down, but we are investing for the long term. We might have 2 quarters of negative numbers, but again, based upon projections, we are. So it's a way to handle, when you have not met expectation, because if the client is complaining about negative returns on 2 quarters, then he's in the wrong type of investment. Then I need to give him, probably design some kind of bond fund for him that he has, very stable income, but if you're looking for growth, you want to take a little bit of risks, and that's part of the strategy. And again, we are looking, our strategy is long term. If you want something sure, I can just put a couple bonds together, some mutual funds, and send you on your way. But we are dealing with strategies where you can have significant growth, and that's part of the market.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And ethics and business could be contradictory sometimes, and some people are willing to take the risk of being punished under the great ambition to money.
Yeah.
So what do you think the cases that some employees set up accounts or like do transactions without their customers' permission, and how important do you think ethics is to the business and the financial world?
That's one of the questions that's really plaguing, I believe, this country, and I think it's a global problem. I think you're referring to what happened with Wells Fargo,
Yes.
right? Yeah, because you see, a lot of times, people are under a lot of pressure, because you're used to making a certain amount of money. You went out there and you bought this house for $500,000. You have the kids in private school, and you driving in the BMW, and my numbers are looking bad, and I don't want to lose my job. So I find myself in a position where either I have to cut corners and maintain the lifestyle that my family and I have become accustomed to, or I decide to move back in my mother's basement and try to be ethical. So it's an individual thing, but really, what really drives somebody to be ethical when everybody around you is being unethical?
Yes.
Because the challenge is that you figure that by the time they figure this thing out, I'll be out of here. So it has to be something. It's an individual thing. it has to be something that's within you to want to do the right thing, even when doing the right thing is tough.
Yeah, it's quite difficult for the individual to make the decision because they are actually involved in, like in the culture, the company culture, or like what the company corporate governance is. It's not like your decision.
Well, absolutely. It's not your decision, and that's why a lot of people walk away from certain jobs because the company, the governance, the company governance does not line up with your own ethics. Because I've already made a decision a long time ago. I'm not going to lie for any company, or I have found myself in a position where I don't really need your money that bad, where I'm going to go ahead and sell out everything that I believe in so I can keep this job. But like I said, the trap for a lot of people is that they're stuck, and what I find that the unethical behavior has a sort of trickle down effect, because if the people on the top are unethical, you see the ethics doesn't start at your desk.
Yeah.
Because the people who they will find that out. The management turn a blind eye on things because at Wells Fargo, the management knew about these accounts. This wasn't something. I mean, you're talking about thousands upon thousands of accounts that they have created.
About like 2 million, I think.
2.4, I think it was 2.2 million,
Yeah.
2.2 million accounts.
Yes.
They end up firing over 5,000 people. Okay, but as I read that this morning, I found out that these people who got fired were people on the low end, people who were making almost no money. They were the customer. They were on the low end of the pay scale. So a lot of times, you see, when it comes to ethical issues, the people who are supposed to have the responsibility of that usually find ways to avoid it, and is the people on the lower end end up feeling the responsibility of that. And as you get exposed to what's the word I'm looking for? Confidential, not, I want to say confidential information. No, the word privileged information. You see, that's the word. There's a word called privileged information. Now, privileged information is very important because I could sell that. You see, and that's what people actually sell, privileged information. That's what insider trading is. I have privileged information that I'm hearing that a company, okay, a pharmaceutical company, their experiment for a particular drug will not be approved by the FDA. Okay? Now, I know that that's bad news on Wall Street. I'm holding 1,000 shares of this company's stock. What am I going to do? What would be the right thing? I would go ahead and sell. Because I know that this will have a negative impact on the stock prices and it's going to go down. Not only that I would sell my share, I would call up my friend. I'm going to say, look, Dennis, that stock you're holding with XYZ Pharmaceuticals, sell. He's going to ask me, Anthony, why? I said, look, just trust me on this, okay?
I get the privileged information.
So no, you see, that's another, you see, these things end you up in jail, and the question is that people do it in spite of the fact that they know they can go to jail for that, but they take a risk. See, it's all part of the risk factor. I'm thinking by the time they figure this thing out, I'm in Fiji somewhere on an island. Okay. So again, it's a personal thing that we have to do. We have privileged information, and I can use it for my advantage, or I can be ethical and responsible, understand there are other people on the other side of that who I'm actually affecting their lives, their 401k, their retirement, and all of that. So my answer to this question is that it has to be a personal thing for you. It can't be something that's trickled down from management, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to feel good about yourself, and if you believe that there is something that's unethical that you cannot be part of, get another job. You know, because at the end of the day, it's not even worth uh, the mental anguish of having to appear before some kind of committee to answer questions about some things. You might even end up even going to jail. Okay, so it has to be a personal goal and objective that you come to this company and says, you know, my goal is to be ethical about what I'm doing. You know, these are the procedures. This is how it's supposed to be done. I know what the rules and regulations are, and I've decided to follow those. And again, it has to be a personal decision for you. Don't let management determine your ethics. If you don't agree with the management ethics, then that's not a company for you.
I think in some sense you already answered my next question, which is maybe some suggestions for young graduates who are involved in this kind of aggressive like company culture. And I think it's important to choose like what you really want. I mean, you want to like a really good number on your bank account, or you want to keep your own ethics. So I think
Yeah, and you see, I mean, what I will tell young students who is just trying to get into the industry, you know, you have a long career ahead of you, and you want to think long term, because you know once you become blackballed on the markets on the Wall Street, your career is over. You know, and all of this education and all of this money that you spent and all of this learning, you know, once you're blacklisted, you really, it's hard to really have any credibility again.
and build up your reputation.
Yes, I mean your reputation is shot. You know, so I would tell people to think long term. You know, I'm not just trying to get a quick buck here. I'm not just trying to get some quick money, but I want to be in this industry for many years. I don't know how long it's going to be, and I want to be able to not have any stains on my records. You know, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, you know, think long term, not this short term, quick fix. You know, cutting corners, because it has a way of catching up with you, and sometimes you might not be involved to the extent, but the person who got caught end up putting everything on you, and you don't have the resources to fight, because when you have the SEC on your back, or you have these regulatory agencies on your back, you cannot fight these people. I mean, they have so much resources that they will bankrupt you, and you still go into jail. You know, so you have to understand the big giant you're fighting. You know, you have to understand the people that you're dealing with. It's not Julio down the street at the 7-Eleven store down the street. You're dealing with big regulatory agencies who have all kinds of resources, who by the time they come to you to ask you a question, they already have had, if not years, months of information on. These guys don't act so quickly. So by the time they come, you're pretty much done, because they pretty much already had a lot of information on you. You know, because one of the things you learn with dealing with high government agencies and the federal government, they are very patient. And a lot of times we end up we end up digging ourselves deeper holes, because we think, oh, we're getting away with this. But they're allowing you to they're allowing you to have so much stuff on yourself that by the time I come to you, you just have to, okay, all right, so handcuff me, because so the time they come to you about this thing, they already had 5 years of investigation, of monitoring, you know, and it's pretty much you're pretty much done, you know, so.
There is no way to avoid the investigation about it.
Oh no, they already have stuff on you. So you really got to monitor yourself. You really got to have a person of ethical principles.
Yeah, I think it's very important for young professionals to set up their like ethical goal, or as you mentioned, long-term goal, like to help them like insist themselves in the kind of like the high profit but also high risk industrial environment.
Yes, yeah. Because it could be tempting though, because there are people who's going to come to you with ideas and make you think, look, you know, get in on the game.
Yeah.
You know, they're driving Ferraris and Porsches and all of the. See, that cannot be the motivation, though. You're gonna get there, but not as fast as some people will. But you want to take your time to get there because these people pay you a lot of money. I mean, you get into one of these good companies, you get into a J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank. Why I keep saying Deutsche Bank? Deutsche Bank. I think for a time I did some consulting at Deutsche Bank.
Oh.
So Deutsche Bank. I did well, that's a whole nother conversation. Consulting there, yeah. So, but you're working for these major companies. I mean, these people pay you a lot of money, and they want your loyalty. They don't want you to bring a bad reputation to them, and you don't want to be the person to be able to do
I don't
that.
want to.
Yes, you don't want that. You don't really want that at all.
Okay, so thank you for the suggestions.
Okay. Yes. I want to read wonderful things. You seem like such beautiful, good people that I want to come back 5 years from now and see that you guys are maybe a portfolio analyst, a portfolio manager. And, I ask you, okay, how big is the fund that you handle? You say, Anthony, it's a $2 billion fund. But the future looks bright. And it's a great industry. Like I said, if I were to do it, I'll do it all over again. But I'll do it a little differently. I'm not gonna. I'll be a little. I think I might be in the markets a little longer, though. I think I got out too fast. I think I got
There's
out.
still a lot of money for you.
I think I left money on the table, and that's never a good thing. Leaving money on the table. That's never a good thing. So make sure I get all the monies that I can, and then I leave. Okay.
Well, that's all our question, and we thank you a lot for coming here for our interview. And we learned a lot from financial industrial and also from your working experience before. And we've learned a lot about the ethics and business, and also the portfolio, the market, and this whole industry. We learned a lot. Thanks.
Well, thank you.